are watching Influence Media, PSI TV, the Netflix of biz brands.
Fascination with trees and forest creatures be entertaining? Well, my guest has done exactly that. And if you're looking for your next adventure in frightful imagination via a book to curl up with or the foundations for a dark thriller, imaginative movie script, the Sylvan Horn might just do the trick. Robert's fascination with mythology, trees, and the creatures of the woods became a page-turning novel that my guest got a first place gold medal in the Reader's Favorite Book Contest, second place runner-up award in the Los Angeles Book Festival, and a nomination for Montaigne Medal for most thought-provoking book in the Eric Hoffer Book Contest. Robert Redinger is an immersive and captive storyteller. So step into the world where ancient realms clash, where mystical beings tread the path of destiny, and where pages pulse with the magic of an epic adventure. Immerse yourself in a captivating fantasy realm with enchanted blades and a battle between light and darkness. Robert, thank you for being my guest today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So, Robert, I read the book and I did write you a comment on
Yeah,
Amazon for
appreciate
sure.
that.
So I read the book, Robert, and it was definitely a high level writing style. So I had it assessed, and academically, it shows up as being. I'll tell you exactly what the evaluation said. The writing sample appears to be at a relatively high academic grade level, suitable for high school or above. The use of complex sentence structures, descriptive language, and fantasy elements suggests a more advanced level of writing. So advanced level of writing. That's exactly what I saw.
Yeah.
Was that your intention? Does that
Yes.
match the book audience that you're trying to attract?
Yes, it does. I wrote this book for a literate audience. My favorite writers, Michael Moorcock, Fritz Leiber, they wrote great works of heroic literature. And I always say they combine the scholarship of literature with the excitement of comic books. And that's what I try to do. My book is an adventure story that has comic book excitement in the form of literature. It's kind of like King Arthur's Court meets the X-Men, you could say.
Okay. Well, all right. So the Sylvan Horn, that's the name of the book. The Sylvan Horn characters include characters like knights, dragons, trolls, elves, druids, wraiths, troglodytes, pyres, and sylphs. Now, Robert, without giving away the story, what is a druid and what is a dryad? And
Okay.
don't tell us all of them, but what would these characters look like if your book were to be made into a movie?
Yeah. Oh, I wish. Yeah. Well, in mythology, the druids tend to be like wizards in the forest, and the dryads also dwell in the forest, but they're all female and they're like spirits who live in the forest. Their lives are connected with the trees. In my story, the druids and dryads are all spirits who dwell in the forest. They're all part of a hierarchy of angels, like sylvan beings who dwell in the forest. And if they appeared in a film, I imagine the druid might look like a spirit with a glowing blue light, and the dryads would have a white light.
Ah, okay. Well, you have many characters, and many of them have been described in such a way that you can clearly figure which one's dark, which one's light, which one's good, which one's bad. So definitely that's there. Now, this book, this is part one in what you call a series. So how many books do you think is going to come out in the Sylvan Horn? Is it going to be like a continuous saga? Is it going to be what do you anticipate?
Yeah. Well, I've written 4 chapters of book 2, Sword of the Sylph, and it's the best fiction writing I've ever accomplished. I have lots of ideas for the second book and some other possibilities for a third one. I'd be satisfied with 3 books.
You think 3 books will develop all your characters and
Yeah,
tell?
yeah.
Okay. So I did look through, I researched you and I found some reviewers who had left their comments about the book, and they said that they found the book similar to The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
They anticipate that some of the characters that you've introduced, quite a few characters in this book, that the anticipation, because it's a series, that more of these characters will be developed more fully in future books. How accurate do you think this general assumption of reviews is? Is that more accurate?
Well, anybody who writes about elves is going to be compared to Tolkien. He made the elves famous, but he did not invent them. He borrowed them from Norse mythology. He borrowed a lot of things from Norse mythology. He borrowed the dwarves. His dragon has been compared to the dragon in Beowulf. He did a lot of borrowing, and he's great though. But yeah, so I guess I'm used to the comparisons to Tolkien. But and as far as my character development, that could have been better in my first book. The first one's real heavy with the action adventure. That's why I probably won a gold medal in the action adventure category. But yeah, I think the characters will be more developed in the second book.
So I've seen that writing style before, Robert, where writers who anticipate a series, they introduce characters so that the stories that come further have continuity, but those characters get more featured in the upcoming book, so they get more developed in the upcoming book.
Yes.
What I thought was going to be, I thought so, and I think I'm not alone. I think the other readers anticipated that as well.
Yeah.
So when I was researching, Robert, I came across a podcast called The Sylvan Horn.
Yeah.
And it's about Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, which is how I started. I started with Dungeons and Dragons. That got me into literature.
Are you in any way connected to that podcast?
No, I did become aware of them a few months ago, and I wrote them. I said, hey, I got a book called The Sylvan Horn. They didn't write me back though, so I guess they're not interested.
Well, I won't say they're necessarily not interested. If they're talking about Dungeons and Dragons, they maybe want to just stick with that.
Yeah.
That conversation, because every show has its style. So I like to interview authors, so definitely. So, all right, Robert. Well, that was very interesting. So listen, this is an interesting book. It's a page turner. It has that spiritual connotation, but it's action. It's all, it's something. I think it would make an interesting movie. So Robert,
thank you.
Else that you would like to share?
Well, I just like to encourage people to read books. Americans are reading fewer books. There's so many people who graduate from college and never read another book. I have my own theory about why that happens. In school, they have to read all these very depressing stories, all these melancholy explorations of the human condition. The schools are teaching people that great literature must be very depressing and tragic. Of all the books I had to read in school, I can only think of one that had a happy ending, Oliver Twist. That's the only one. Everything else was depressing and tragic. Of Mice and Men, about a guy who shoots his best friend in the head. The Catcher in the Rye, about a guy who ends up in a mental institution because he has no friends. And The Metamorphosis, about a guy who wakes up one day and turns into a cockroach. Kids have to read this stuff, and then we wonder why they have such a bad attitude, why they're so depressed. It's because we've been feeding them a steady diet of depression and tragedy. Now, don't get me wrong, these books are classics and should be studied in school, but they should be part of a balanced diet that includes other books that are not depressing and tragic. And it's weird, we don't do this with music. We don't teach people only sad songs are good. We know there are many happy songs. We don't do it with art. We know there are many happy paintings. But with literature, we are taught that if it's going to be serious, it has to be sad and tragic. So I would just like to encourage people to read books, all kinds of books, fiction, nonfiction. Just read some books.
I agree, but those of us who do read, it also tends to put us in a new income bracket as well. So readers tend to, we're not satisfied with just the basic life. We're looking for excitement. We're looking to travel the world vicariously through others. We're looking, we expand our horizon even if we never leave our couch.
So it's great because you don't have to hire a film crew if you want to write. Let's say if you want to write, that's one of the things that attracted me to write it. You don't have to hire a director and actors, and it's you have to. It's all got to get on the page somehow, but you don't have to rely on all the other factors.
And on that note, Robert, there are lots of people who, when books have been turned into movies, I don't know if you've ever experienced it, but I have books that I've read, and then I go watch a movie. The book's better. Have you ever noticed that the book is better? Why do you think
different? I often find different. I've heard like I guess that there's stuff in the book, maybe I would guess, my guess would be there's stuff you can do explaining the characters and what's going on in their heads. With a book, I think you can do that better than a film, unless you have a voiceover, which is very popular. But without a voiceover, you can't really get inside their head like a book can.
My theory on that is when you read the book, your brain creates the pictures. When you watch a
Yes.
movie, they've given you the pictures. So they've taken away the imaginative component,
Yeah.
and it feels, sometimes the picture they deliver is not as
Yeah.
good as the one you put in your head. That's
Yeah.
my
And that reminds me of what turned me on to heroic literature. I read Fritz Leiber, but then I read Michael Moorcock's Elric of Melniboné, which is kind of a groundbreaking. Reading that book was almost like when I saw Star Wars the first time. Star Wars showed me what a filmmaker could do. Elric of Melniboné showed me what a writer could do with words. I didn't know until I read that book what you could do with words. Just with words, creating a world with words. It was really impressive.
Hmm. So, ladies and gentlemen, escape into a world of magic. Don't just read the book, live an adventure. Order your copy of the Sylvan Horn and let the magic unfold. Because sometimes the best journeys are the ones that happen between the pages. So,
Yep.
and that magic is just a click away. We will be sharing the website in the credits at the end. Robert Redinger, thank you for being my guest
Okay.
today.
Thanks for having me. Thanks a lot.
All right, thanks.